Hey, howdy. I'm Darlene Marshall, host of the Better Than Fine podcast. And on this week of the show, we have Dr. Diana Hill here to talk about her new book, Wise Effort, and her other book, I Know I Should Exercise, but. And this was a really fun conversation to get to have with Dr. Diana Hill. She is not only a clinical psychologist and a world-renowned expert in acceptance and commitment therapy, but she's also a Buddhist and a yogi. And she really does an expert job of one of my favorite things is when we weave together these ancient ways of knowing about the body and the mind with our modern scientific understanding and practice, which is not scientifical, but you get what I meant. It is an exciting episode. It's dynamic. It's got a ton of practices, and I cannot wait for you to hear it. So let's get to it. Like, follow, subscribe, share. You know what to do. On to the show. Well, hello there, listeners, and welcome to this week's episode of the Better Than Fine podcast. I'm your host, wellness coach, and well-being educator, Darlene Marshall. And man, this year has felt like the phrases around burnout and overwhelm and resilience have just been absolutely everywhere. And that, I think, makes a lot of sense. If we consider what's been happening these last few years, just the accelerated pace of rapid and complex change, the feeling of instability from the systems around us. I don't know about you, but so many people I know, clients, friends, my family, listeners to this show, have been sharing with me their feelings that they are just on this emotional treadmill that feels like it is accelerating to the point that they are just spent. And if you are a regular fan of this show, if you consume my content kind of generally, you know, I'm not exempt from that. You can be as qualified as you want to be, and you are still going to be beholden to all of the same challenges of what it means to be a person in a life. And I've been feeling it too. This year has been a ride, but we still got to live a life. Still gotta show up and pay the electricity bill and take good care of our families and do all of the things that we got to do on a given day. And for so many of us, it can have this feeling that we just give and give and give and give. And then there's a little bit left in the tank, if anything at all. And I think our guest today would tell me that some of that is the opposite of what she calls a wise effort. Dr. Diana Hill is a clinical psychologist and globally recognized as an expert in acceptance and commitment therapy, which is also sometimes called ACT. She's got over 20 years of meditation and yoga experience, 4 books. The most recent are I Know I Should Exercise, But, and we recently had her co-author, Katie Bowman, on the show, and Wise Effort, which was an absolute pleasure for me to screen and read. I really did enjoy this book very much, and I'm really excited to pick her brain about it. So, Dr. Diana Hill, welcome to Better Than Fine.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Wonderful to have you. And as I was prepping the show, here's a weird side compliment. I was prepping the show, and I wanted to hold up both of your books. And then I could not find I Know I Should Exercise, But, and I realized it is because I lent it to someone in my family because I was like, you need this. And then it was like, oh, wait, no, I'm having you on the show. So I don't have it to hold up, but know that it was so impactful and helpful that I passed it on to others. So I thought you'd appreciate knowing that.
Isn't that the case? I feel like all of my good books I've given away. So I'm like left with the ones that I'm like, who'd I give that to? And then I often think, because I give them to clients, and I think, well, maybe then they gave it away to somebody else and then they passed on the good. So I appreciate that. I hope your friend or family member is utilizing I Know I Should Exercise, But, and then I hope you give Wise Effort away. And that's a good sign of a good book.
I don't know if I'm going to give this one away. And in Wise Effort, you mentioned Pema Chodrona for a few times. And my most given away book is the little pocket pamacodrone, the little yellow one, because I will intentionally buy it whenever I see it, mark it up, and then eventually just hand it to somebody.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you, where the things that hit me the most in the chest, I will often buy an extra copy to give away so that I don't give away my one with all my notes in it, which is now this book, Wise Effort.
Well,
I'm so
Pema
glad.
Chodron, I was going to say Pema Chodron has all the great titles that are very aligned with Wise Effort. Things like welcoming the unwelcome. That's Wise Effort. When things fall apart, what do we need? Wise Effort.
Wise Effort.
And start where you are. That's another favorite of mine. Sometimes it's just the name of the book on your bedside table is inspiring too, because it just catches you and reorients you. So yeah, big fan of hers too.
Now I'm curious what's on your bedside table. I have Lisa Miller's Awakened Mind on my bedside table.
Oh, that is good. Actually, the book that I have, I started reading poetry before bed.
Ooh.
And the book that I have is by Rosemary Traumer, and it's a book of poems. They're just little short poems that actually she wrote after her son died. And they're so moving and beautiful and remind you of what matters. And I've kind of I was trying to switch from reading books that got my head too into things and then also not being on my phone. And so a poetry book is just enough. Yeah.
That's a good idea. My sister just gave me one. Oh, I have Milk and Honey. I know.
Oh wait, no, Milk and Honey is that's actually a different author. She's the Landing. Milk and Honey is I can't remember the name of the author. That's
on the shelf.
Yeah, it's a different one. Yeah.
Yes, it is a different one. I think it's on the shelf,
but I have multiple poetry books now on my bedside table.
And now I can picture the text, but I can't remember the author. Anyway, we've run down a strange rabbit hole to begin with. And also, I don't know if you have this experience where you'll read a word or someone's name and never hear it said aloud. And I've just realized, is it Pema Chodron? Have I been saying that wrong for like 15 years?
Pema Chodron. Yeah.
I have been saying it wrong for a really long time. That's really funny.
Yeah.
I was one of those kids that grew up a reader in a non-reader family that mispronounces everything because I've just only ever read things. Anyway, so you've already taught me something. Thank you so much for that. I absolutely loved very early in the book, you talked about your introduction to the concept of wise effort and its Buddhist roots. And I wondered if you could ease us into our conversation about the idea itself by sharing that story with our listeners.
Yeah. Well, wise effort isn't a term that I came up with. It's a term that comes from the Eightfold Path of Buddhism. And the Eightfold Path is, Buddhism, they have all these numbers. So there's 4 noble truths. And then the 4th truth is the Eightfold Path, which is 8 more things. And it's the path to awakening or path to liberation. And it has these 8 things to it, like wise speech and wise livelihood. We're engaging in wise livelihood right now. And wise mindfulness. Wise effort is one of them. And I grew up with my dad was Buddhist and my mom, I grew up in Catholic school. So I was kind of this hodgepodge of background. But when I was 19, I went to Plum Village for the first time. And that's where Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen master, was at the time was teaching and living. He's passed since then. And that's where I first heard the term wise effort. He actually used wise action or right effort as another way of talking about wise effort. But what he spoke about was that sometimes when we are in situations that maybe are going against our values, it was actually in relationship to a soldier that was there on this retreat who said, I don't know if I want to go back to war again. I don't want to be behind a gun. And Thich Nhat Hanh said, you're the perfect person to be there because you have this awareness. So sometimes we're in situations that we don't know how to respond, or it feels like it's against our values. But if we can engage in wise effort, even in the most difficult situations, that's what really frees us. And it was another way of looking at how we relate to our energy that was different than just this don't do it kind of way of responding, but rather it's more about how you're using your effort. Are you using it in ways that are aligned with your values? Are you using it with wisdom? Sometimes that's pouring more effort into some things. Sometimes that's removing your effort from some things and using your wisest self to help make that decision, to use the discernment. But since then, I've used more of I'm a clinical psychologist, so I dive more into the psychology research around what it means to have psychological flexibility and engage in wise effort, which is a little bit more of the research side of things, not just the contemplative practice.
Well, and I want to explore all of it, because I so appreciated, and I'm sure you also have a podcast, which of course we're going to plug. I'm sure you have this experience of people reaching out, they share their books, they want to come on the show, and you see that they have something to offer that you can appreciate for your listeners. And then you have the times that you have someone who shares ideas that are just what you needed to hear. And so much of your book was exactly what I needed to hear, in the nuance of what you just said, right? It's not this binary of do it, don't do it. It's how we show up to do it, even when it's difficult. How do we find actions that align with our values, that work us through? And I deeply appreciated the nuance in the framing and how you unpacked it in such an accessible way. Because I do think we're in this moment where so many people have to keep showing up and keep showing up and keep showing up, and it's wearing them down in the challenges of what we're all going through, what we're all moving through collectively. And the idea that you can come in with wise effort that aligns with values, and it's the how we do the things we have to do that moves us through, was just a very welcome set of ideas to me. I don't know if there wasn't a question anywhere there, and you're welcome to respond to the thought, but
well,
I found it very impactful.
Yeah, I mean, I could respond to the thought just by observing you right now. So you're in your office, you have your dog behind you, you're petting your dog, you're doing a podcast, right? You have a superpower woman, Wonder Woman behind you. So already, just from looking at you, if I never even had a word, I would be able to tell that some things about you, what you care about, how you bring what you care to your work, and how that may actually help you show up more at work with more energy, more vitality, a little bit more ease. And it could be as simple as that. That feels like wise effort to me. That, I love going and getting the massages at those like quick walk-in massage places where you don't know what you're going to get,
Yes. And I always am like a little embarrassed to admit that that's where I go.
Oh my gosh.
Because I feel like people are like, oh, you're like this wellness, shouldn't you have like the elite? And I'm like, no, I love this couple that run it like one of those cheap highway places. Anyway, please.
Yeah. So I love going in there because it's like, it's kind of wise effort, because it's usually like when I need it and I don't have an appointment. Like I just need to go in, I need someone to work on my back. But I always love seeing the masseuses that hang from the bars and walk with their feet on people's backs. And I'm always like, you know what? There's a masseuse who's not harming their body while they're taking care of somebody else's body. Right? I'm a therapist. Wouldn't it be nice if I could do my work as a therapist and also not destroy myself, so that by the end of the day, I can walk in the house and have a conversation with my spouse and be like, sorry, don't talk to me, I've got nothing left. I mean, how many
emotional tank is empty.
Yeah. Do we not engage in wise effort? And it's just it's a shift. It's a way of looking at, I talk about our genius energy. Like, what is it that what gifts do I have to offer here? What are my values? And then if I apply those energetically to what I'm doing, then what I'm doing is not as depleting, but then I also kind of do better work too. So it's regenerative. I'm super interested in regenerative energy, whether that's the regenerative energy of our planet or just for us as individuals, because it doesn't have to be so one way. It doesn't have to be that either you're pouring everything in or you're completely giving up. And that's often the dichotomy that a lot of people are in.
Oh, you gave me like 4 threads to pick at, and I'm not sure which one to go with, because all right, let's go with the regenerative energy, because it's the most recent thing you said. One of the things I loved in the book was your scribble diagrams of the cycle, right? Your energy cycle. And my background, my subspecialty in positive psychology is upward spirals, and how we use our lifestyle behaviors to make ourselves more accessible to positive emotional experience, so it can drive thriving. So things like 20 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity that you actually enjoy, gratitude practices, sleep hygiene, so that when something good happens, we actually feel it. And what I hear you just describing is this flywheel crank, right? We're like almost like a perpetual motion machine of the way that when we are bringing wise effort, it helps to renew us so that we can make more meaningful, positive impact, right? We have the energy because of the effort. Did I hear that right? Because that's what I heard.
Yeah. And I think it's helpful to make the distinction between wise effort and unwise effort. That diagram of the energy spiral came from, I just keep a big notepad in my office. And if I'm working one-on-one in person with somebody, I'll pass them the notepad, like a big giant one, and I'll pass them a Sharpie because it's like so satisfying to draw. Like, you're not allowed to ever draw with a Sharpie in our house, but now you can. And I say, just draw it. Like if I were to go inside of you and get a sense of what it's like to be you when you're all caught up in your resentment towards your coworker, or when you're all caught up in your shame around your relapse, or you're all caught up in your worry about your kid. What does it look like and feel like inside your body? And that was my really simple drawing. It looks like a big tangled mess.
Yeah.
And it's all the energy is pointing away from what I care about. And so then the next thing that I talk with people about is, okay, what's causing that? Like, why do we do that? And if you look at psychological principles, which beautifully map onto these contemplative practices, this is what's so fascinating is basically people that have been practicing things for thousands and thousands and thousands of years are coming to the same conclusion as the researchers at Harvard and Yale, who are researching the brain and behavior. And there's three things that contribute to that tangle of energy pointing away from your values. So you could think about something that you're struggling with right now. It could be anything, a health behavior change or a relationship or something at work, or maybe difficulty saying no to something. Is it one of these things or all three of these that are contributing to unwise effort? The first one is, are you stuck in a story? So in ACT, we call it cognitive fusion. It's as if two pieces of metal are fused together. You are fused with your story, which isn't necessarily reality. And our stories can really misdirect our efforts because we believe them to be true. And we add on and they become, the confirmation bias, right? So are you stuck in a story? The second one is, are you avoiding discomfort? Maybe you're avoiding the discomfort of disappointing someone, of someone not approving of you. You're avoiding discomfort of just anxiety. You're avoiding sort of the discomfort of being in uncertainty. So maybe that's it. And then third, what could misdirect your effort is, are you holding on too tight? So in ACT, we call the avoidance of discomfort, we call it experiential avoidance. You're like avoiding all the stuff you're experiencing under your skin. And then we call holding on too tight experiential attachment. You are holding on to proving yourself. You're holding on to being right. You are holding on to things staying the same. And when you're doing any one of those three, stuck in a story, avoiding discomfort, or holding on too tight, you will engage in unwise effort, and all that energy will get tangled up and go away from your values.
And I think what I hear underneath this is another of those threads that I wanted to pick at, which was around psychological flexibility. And I have noticed this last few years, there's this like growing, I don't know if the idea is not new, but I think the momentum of the idea catching around the conversations on psychological flexibility. Like I've certainly been hearing the phrase a lot more. So, I was just very excited to be like, oh, this one was right at the edge. Can we talk a bit with our listeners about what is psychological flexibility? Why is it so helpful when we talk about these three? And then of course, how do they build it? Like, what do we do with it?
Yeah. Well, psychological flexibility is a term from ACT, or acceptance and commitment therapy. And this is just sort of the trends in psychology. Basically, research happens about like 10 years out before the big wave of that research comes into the general public. So 15 years ago, when I was almost 20 years ago, now, when I was in graduate school, we were on the edge of researching mindfulness and starting to research ACT. And there's been a big surge of interest more recently in the general public. It's kind of like hitting the now, just sort of like how mindfulness hit maybe a decade ago, and then self-compassion hit. It's the new wave. So psychological flexibility, the reason why it's hitting is because, one, there's over 40 years of research behind it. There's over 1,400 randomized controlled trials. And what it is your ability to be mentally flexible, to be flexible with your sense of self, to be flexible with your behavior. And whatever obstacle shows up in your way, it could be your mother-in-law, it could be losing your job, it could be your own inner anxiety or stress, whatever obstacle shows up in your way, you have the flexibility to be able to continue to respond in a way that aligns with your values. So psychological flexibility is your capacity to show up, be present, be engaged, no matter what. And there are a set of processes, 6 core processes that make up your psychological flexibility.
More
and what
numbers.
newer, yeah.
I said more numbers.
More numbers. I know, because psychology is just
like
truth.
Yeah,
it's just like Buddhism. Yeah. Acronyms and numbers.
Oh yeah, alphabet soup.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so we got 6. Let's go.
So 6. So the 6 core processes, I'll just run through them, are basically being present, accepting, having committed action towards your values, knowing what your values are, having a flexible sense of self, and being able to step back from your thoughts. And those all together, they're sort of like sides of a Rubik's Cube. One side is linked to another side. But when you work on all of them, you become more psychologically flexible. And what the research shows, there was a large meta-analysis that Stephen Hayes did, and with a number of other colleagues. Stephen Hayes is one of the co-founders of ACT, that found that he looked at over 50,000 research studies and found that the key mechanism of action, the key reason why people change in therapy, is not necessarily the intervention that they're getting. It's not necessarily social support. The key is, do they develop more psychological flexibility? And if they do, then you see the positive outcome that you want. So it's now being used. I mean, we're working with chess players, Olympic athletes, people in war. It's the World Health Organization. It uses it with war refugees in Sudan. It's the primary treatment that's used for chronic pain. It's used in the VA for trauma. And I use it on a day-to-day basis with executives, athletic coaches, because it's really more about how to be a human in this uncertain world and stay aligned with your values, which is helpful in lots of different places and environments.
Yeah. And I think good coaching does the same, right? Even if you're not specifically trained in ACT, many of the foundational concepts in coaching are driving some of the same mechanisms of action. And that was one of the exciting things as I was reading through the book, and the ideas were jumping out at me of like, okay, good to know we are continuing to do some things right. And also like there's some, I think, ideas in there that sharpen the saw. So for those who these ideas sound really exciting to, I'm just going to keep nudging you back to Wise Effort, because I think it's really got a lot in there in terms of application as well, like not just these ideas. And I would love to bridge the 2 books. And I think this helps us bridge these 2 books because, you talk about Wise Effort and its relationship with curiosity. And in the later parts of the book, when you're talking about bodies and health and Wise Effort, and in your other book, I know I said exercise, but the one with Katie, which clearly is about getting around our obstacles to exercise. I'm driving to a point, I swear. I think there are a lot of people who want to embrace a more open-minded sense of themselves and their bodies, and this idea of like, well, start with getting curious about yourself, start with getting curious about your body. But there can be so much shame and guilt and these really painful identities in our relationships with our bodies. And for those who struggle to find Wise Effort because of those emotional obstacles, what advice would you have for them? Because I think they hear the idea of like, well, get curious, and then it hurts. How do they bridge that gap?
That's such a good question. You're hitting my sweet spot. I used to run a treatment center for eating disorders, and I have my own history, which I share a bit about in this book, in terms of disordered eating, but also just a really kind of shameful relationship with my body. And I remember when I was a little girl, I remember watching my mom get dressed, and maybe other people had a similar experience of watching their parent in relationship to their body in some way. And I remember the way that she used to look at her stomach. And she never actually outwardly said anything, but it was
Mine
just
did.
this like, okay, well, yeah,
Yeah.
whether you say something or not, it's getting
Yeah,
transmitted,
it's there.
right?
Yeah.
And I used to watch just the way she, she'd like put her pants on and like kind of like
Hate
hate on her
herself.
body. Yeah,
Hate
kind
herself.
of hate on her
Yeah.
body. And then I would look at my own body, which is sort of like a lot like my mom's body, right?
Yep.
And
Looks just
I'd be
like
like,
her.
maybe I should hate on this part of myself, right?
Yeah.
So it's not as easy of just get curious. I mean, that feels like a very simple solution. But maybe we start with, okay, we could get curious about all of the factors that go into this relationship with my stomach. So it's not just my relationship with my stomach, it's my mom's relationship with her stomach and her mom's relationship with her stomach and our culture's relationship with stomachs and women.
Mhm.
It's also, gosh, and my stomach is also like the place where I have intuition that I've had to turn off,
Yeah.
that I have like a gut feeling and I'm like, don't listen to that, you know. My stomach is also the place that I've carried babies and all sorts of things. There's lots of things going on. My stomach is where my hunger and fullness is, and I didn't always listen to my hunger and fullness or override it. So we could start by getting curious about just like all the different aspects that are related to this body part. And sometimes what I had clients do that struggle with their bodies is I have them do this practice of zoom in and zoom out. Because
Mm.
oftentimes what you do is you go in the mirror and you're so overly focused on this external thing, like you look at your face, but you're only really looking at two
Yeah.
aspects of your face.
That pimple right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. It's like these crow's feet and this part of my nose, right? And so
Yeah.
it's so that's the way our brain works is we zoom in and we look at what's wrong. But could you zoom way out and could
Yeah.
you see your face as, wow, this is the face that's communicating sadness. And can I see sadness in my eyes, or could I see joy in my eyes? This is also the face that's, kissed my little dog goodbye this morning when I was leaving the house. And then this is also a face that behind my face is what allows me to see and smell and hear. And there's this whole functioning of it, right? So with psychological flexibility, what we're trying to do, you see what I'm doing there? It's just like get a little more flexible
Mhm.
with all of it. And it's not
Mhm.
that you're getting rid of any of it. I don't think I could ever erase that experience of seeing my mom's relationship with her stomach. But what I can do is get more flexible with it, see it as part of my experience, but not all of my experience, bring some compassion into the picture for her, for me, for all women and their stomachs, you know, some compassion from my stomach. If my stomach could write me a letter about what it's been
Mm.
like to be my stomach, what would it say? Oh my gosh. Could I
Yeah, and
listen? Yeah.
what I hear there is, you're not necessarily changing the material reality, right? The objective existence. It's changing the relationship to it.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you brought up the intergenerationality of all of this. It almost seems like a silly story, but you've reminded me of something that's happened over the last few years. I moved home during the pandemic to help take care of my grandmother, who's now 90. She's in the hospital with pneumonia right now, so everybody send Grandma Betty some healing vibes. But half my family has these incredible ice blue eyes that like everybody constantly comments about their blue eyes. And if you're watching the show on video, I very clearly don't have them. So I always was like, oh, my brown eyes, I don't have the pretty eyes. I have my eyes. They're just so plain. And when I moved home, it's COVID. Obviously, we're all very isolated. I'm trying to keep this octogenarian in groceries and safe. And one day I go over to see her, and she's clearly been so lonely, all cooped up. So I ended up looking rather intensely into her eyes. And all of a sudden, just like the voice out of the ether goes, like, oh, her eyes are your eyes. And it totally changed my relationship to my own face
Yeah.
by this idea that I am carrying this person who has loved me unconditionally from the moment I was born. She's like my favorite person, that they're her eyes. And I have been like poo-pooing them my whole life.
Mhm.
And I guess I'm just saying, like, I was so attached to this story of what I didn't have. I never noticed this like very beautiful, subtle thing that has been with me the whole time.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we do these exercises and we don't realize how they're working on us under the surface. And we think that it's this big epiphany. And, this is after like 20 years of therapy. So,
well,
thank you also for that memory.
And what you're tapping into there, if we go at it from a process-based lens or from a very sort of like technical, psychological thing, is you're tapping into the process of self, a flexible sense of self. And once we can see that you are me and I am you, I mean, not only are your grandmother's, her eyes, your eyes, we can actually do this. I do this exercise called Just Like Me. It's a practice that I learned from Jack Kornfield, who, when I was on retreat with him, he's a Buddhist teacher.
Yeah.
And Just Like Me is a Tibetan practice where I do this with like executives, I like pair them up.
I love it. I love this.
And you look at them. You could even look at me in the eyes. We could do this right now, where you look at somebody and you see, just like me, this person was a kid once. And just like me, this person had a best friend. And just like me, this person has things that keeps them up at night and worries about. And just like me, this person feels like they haven't measured up in some way. Just like me, this person's going to grow old. And when you start to realize that all humans are, you realized your grandma is you, but we start to realize like all humans are kind of at their core, just like me, then it activates a sense of self, which is our compassionate self. And our compassionate self is a different part of our nervous system than the self that is competitive and the self that wants to go get things, the drive self, and different part of our nervous system than the self that is in threat. It's a whole bond, tend and befriend part of our nervous system. So when you had that self shift, the flexible self shift with your grandma, it probably transmitted to you more compassion for yourself and compassion for her. And that is a massive intervention. So yeah, flexible.
Yeah. No, thank you for unpacking not only the like mechanisms underneath, but the exercise. I learned that exercise doing my yoga teacher training in Thailand, and it was so impactful to be in the room. We were in a long lines together, and people were crying, and it's just so clear how even these are yogic practitioners going to get teacher training. They've traveled around the world to get there. Even them having not taken the pause and the openness to see that mirror in one another. So I imagine doing it with executives must be very fun.
Yeah.
And I so appreciate, it's always very satisfying when you have someone on who shares as openly as you are. And one of the things that I had in my notes that I had considered asking you about was the vulnerability you showed in the book. And you actually already bring it up. So first off, thank you for bringing that vulnerability into the conversation about your history with disordered eating. And you link it in the book to self-compassion, which you just brought up. And, the work of Kristen Neff, the self-compassion work. I also want to take this opportunity to mention your book on self-compassion, which I think in this moment when compassion and empathy are really being called to the carpet as potentially, made up as a tool of some, social movement, as if we're trying to, get away with something, when really, if I understand correctly, I think deeper than I do, we have evidence that this is wired into us, right? We evolved to have these impulses, these instincts to be compassionate and empathetic for one another. And it is adaptive. It wasn't something that was invented as part of a social justice movement. And if you want to speak to that at all, that it's not something to move away from, right? It's something that opens us up because it is adaptive to us. It helps us be more resilient and more flexible, and feel and think and be well. Like it is part of the equation.
Well, yeah.
Tell me if I'm getting that wrong.
You're getting it right. I mean, when we talk about the evolution of human beings, I mean, we evolve these giant brains, and metabolically, our heads get so big in the womb that we need to get out of our mother's body before we're really fully ready. If you think about like a horse being born, they like pop up on their feet and off they go. Right? A human baby is born. It's like it's it can't do anything, right? So we evolved the compassion system to caretake our young, and we only have a few of them. You see baby spiders, there's 100 of them pop out of that little thing. We pop out maybe 1 or 2 or 3 if we're lucky, right? So the compassion system is there and strong and wired to caretake our young. It's also there to caretake each other, because humans, you need 15 of them to run down and get an elk.
We're pack animals.
Yeah, we're pack animals. Yeah. So we also need to know how to get along and how to take care of each other. And we perform better when we're collaborative. But we're a unique species in that we're both collaborative and we're competitive. So we'll also go after resources and elbow each other out. And we also, Paul Gilbert, who's out of the Compassionate Mind Foundation, he talks about these 3 systems of our threat system, our drive system, and our compassion system. And we currently live in a culture where our threat and drive system are overstimulated. Anytime you open your phone, many of us may be listening to this podcast on 1.4 speed, because we want to get through it, because we have another one after it, right?
Gotta get it done.
Yeah, our drive system is overstimulated. Things are coming at us faster than ever. We have to digest more and more information than ever and produce more and more. And the compassion system is this third system that down regulates threat and drive. We need it more than ever. People that crave a big exhale, that crave just like a hangout, can I just sit on the porch with my kid for a little bit and hang out with my dog? Can I sit under a tree? Can I not be doing something or running from something? Well, that's your compassion system. And there's, science-backed ways to activate it. That Just Like Me practice is one of them. Looking in your grandma's eyes, great way to do it. Caregiving of someone else. And then we can turn that system on ourselves as well. It's part of an evidence-based practice at this point, because the benefits of compassion, not just self-compassion, compassion is a flow, giving, receiving, and giving to yourself, compassion, are so beneficial physiologically for you, health-wise for you. Your performance will improve, but also just for us as a collective species, we need it more than ever.
Yeah, that's why I think it's so bonkers that it has suddenly been demonized. When did we start demonizing compassion? And I just really appreciate, I'll say it again, the vulnerability you show in the book, I think is emotional leadership that we desperately need from people smart and in the know like you are. I so appreciate you coming on and sharing that genius with us. You also have a podcast. What is it? Where can we find you? I know our mutual friend Jordan Feingold was on at least time.
My podcast it's Wise Effort. Everything's at wiseeffort.com. And I have a podcast there. I have courses there. For coaches, I have a business of therapy coaching program, like a cohort that we go through together, this Wise Effort process to help you play bigger in your coaching life. Sometimes it's I need to figure out what my genius is. I need to figure out what my values are. And I need a group of people to support me in stepping out of my comfort zone. So I do that coaching, Wise Effort business of therapy and coaching program. And all of that's at my website, wiseeffort.com.
Absolutely fabulous. Diana Hill, thank you so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure. And the books, Wise Efforts, and I know I should exercise, and that was so good that I had to give it away. Thank you again for coming on the show. Really appreciate having you. And of course, we would love to hear your feedback on this and every episode of Better Than Fine. So you can email me. It is info@darlene.coach. If you're on Instagram, it's darlene.coach. My website is, wait for it, darlene.coach. On LinkedIn, you can find me there as well. If you're a fan of the show, I hope that you've already subscribed. If you haven't, you're going to want to do that now. If you haven't yet, also, you could leave us a 5-star review. And if you're going to share the show, sharing is caring. Feel free to tag me. I always love to know that you're out there. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourselves and be well.